My name is Amanda Hernandez. I am 37 years old and I have 4 children. They range in ages from 17 to 9. I did not grow up in a Christian home, but I did grow up with very loving parents. My mother and my father were not, their relationship didn't last. I grew up with a stepdad. He was very loving towards me, and I'm very grateful that I was able to have that influence in my life. Throughout my life as a young girl, I was very confused and emotionally unstable. And I think that's because of my father's lack of skill in parenting with me. And stepdad was always there for me and took care of me, but we didn't have a close personal relationship. And this led to feelings when I was a young teenager of being pretty angry. I was an angry young girl. And by the time my senior year came around, I had moved out of the house because I was very disrespectful and combative to my parents, and it wasn't a good environment, especially for them, because I was a terror in the household, and I didn't know why or how or what I was going to do to really just have a better future, but I felt like I needed to just leave the house, and looking back, that was not a good decision. I ended up moving in with one of my friends from high school. I made it through high school, and the year after I graduated, the summer after I graduated, I had a full-time job, I was living on my own, and I met my oldest daughter's father. And we began a very intense, deep relationship very quickly. And it was overwhelming at some points. And it was a roller coaster of a relationship. But by the time I knew it, it was a year in, and I became pregnant with Olivia. And unfortunately, by the time she was born, I was a single mom. However, me getting pregnant with her and her birth restored the relationship with my parents, which I thank God for now. At the time, I was 19, gave birth at 20, and I was very scared. And they helped me so much through her first couple of years. I got a job downtown where I was able to excel at, and I actually met my husband Adam through that job. On our first date, I told him about Olivia. And I was scared. I didn't know what his response was going to be. He said, "Well, I can't wait to meet her." And he was very excited to take on a responsibility other than himself. And I could tell he was responsible and he was going to care for her as I expected, similar to the way my stepdad cared for me. Little did I know that their relationship would just grow and blossom over these years. And I'm so grateful for that chance 30-second meeting 15 years ago. And now I can look back and say that was God loving me and loving Olivia and giving us the stability that we needed in our life. And so we began our relationship, and sadly, shortly after we met, 2 months later, my stepdad passed away. Adam helped me, my sister, and my mom through that time. It was very difficult for my mom, and he stepped in and became the strong shoulder to lean on that she needed before even really knowing her. And then we just continued to grow our relationship, and over the next 7 years we had 3 more children and just working and trying to care for them the best that we could. Shortly after my youngest child was born in 2013, I began feeling symptoms of postpartum depression. At that time in my life, I was 28 years old, and I had never experienced any sort of depression feelings before that. And I was very confused. I didn't understand why it was happening to me, and I couldn't stop it. I think that was the main thing that I felt. I just felt out of control, and I could not regulate my depression. I didn't know what to do. Adam tried to help me as much as he could, but he didn't know what to do either. And we had all the 4 young girls, and it was a tough life living through that depression, and each day was different. It was a roller coaster. Adam didn't know who I would be or what I would be doing when I got home from work, and it was very stressful. And this lasted for 5 years because I did not want to be labeled as a depressed person, and my biggest fear was having to take medicine the rest of my life. And I did not want that to happen. So I tried to do certain remedies or diets, exercise, things like that I sought from worldly counsel. And of course, none of it worked. It only got worse. In November of 2018, I had come to the point where I was no longer able to care for myself. I asked Adam to help me check into a hospital because I was having really bad thoughts, and I was scared of what I might do to myself. I was worried that I might do something that I could not be undone. And I knew that much. I did not want that to happen, but I didn't know how to fix it. So we went to the hospital. Adam and my mom took me to the hospital. They checked me into a behavioral health program. And the next day I arrived and I attended intense therapy classes for 7 days a week for 8 hours a day. And they had me see a psychiatrist right away and a therapist. And I was put on medicine to bridge the gap so that I didn't harm myself and so that I could think clearly enough to learn and understand what they were trying to teach me. And I was put on a few different medicines at the time, and now I come to understand the side effects that those medicines had, but I appreciate the effort that the doctors and therapists had to try to help me just so that I would not do anything foolish that I couldn't undo. And during these therapy classes, the therapist would ask, there was 10 other adults with me in the class, and the therapist would say, what gives you peace every day? Like, what gives you peace? And there was one woman, her name was Kiriana. I will always remember her, and she's sent from God. She always said, God and going to church, and that stuck with me. She was so sincere, and she had inner battles. She actually was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and she had inner battles, but she knew God, and she knew that she knew the light that He had in her life, and that she could access God at any time. Like I said, she was so sincere that it made me, and I'd never believed in God before this, and it made me look at that and just think, I just knew it, and that was God getting a hold of me. And I pondered on that, and I thought about that for a while. During this time, my mom had met a wonderful man named Jim. It was a Christian man, and they married, and they attended a local Baptist church here, but sadly he passed away in 2017, very unexpectedly and sudden. Through Jim, she regained her own Christian faith, and after he passed away, she wasn't able to bring herself to attend the church that they were attending, where his funeral was held and all of his friends were. So she was looking for another church. She came across Souls Harbor Baptist Church in Milwaukee. She had no idea what I was thinking and what these therapy classes, what Kiriana had told me. She had no idea I was thinking about going to church. And all of a sudden one day she said, hey, will you come with me to their Christmas Eve service? I'd like you to check it out. And that, again, is a gift from God. And I'm sure she was scared of my response, but I said yes. But then I was immediately scared myself. I didn't know what I was agreeing to, but I went. And I just knew I needed to do something different to get healthy. Whatever I was doing was not working. And so we went to their Christmas Eve service on December 23rd, 2018. And Pastor Hoover preached the gospel. And he led me to salvation right there in the pew that day. And I was baptized on March 24th, 2019. And for the next year, Mrs. Hoover grabbed hold of me and she discipled me faithfully for an entire year. And I did want to quit at first because it was scary. It was really hard. None of my kids were saved. And I was really scared. I didn't know what to do. The devil was trying to attack my faith and to get me to quit. But she saw that and she was wiser than that, and she knew that she had to help me out. And so for an entire year, every week, she would talk with me and disciple me. And that is absolutely life-changing for me. And then, so over the next 2 years, attending Souls Harbor, my 4 girls received salvation, and Adam got a closer walk with God. And I will forever be grateful for Pastor and Mrs. Hoover and everything they ever did for our family. And I love them very much. Also during this time, I learned to rely on the Holy Spirit, and I took myself off of all of the medicines that were prescribed to me. And I also decided to stop seeing the therapist that was assigned to me and focus on discipleship with Mrs. Hoover. And I haven't been on any psychiatric medicine since then, and I've really learned to listen to the Holy Spirit's guidance when it comes to my emotions. And I've learned just the simple fact, emotions aren't fact. And that was one of the big things I took away from those therapy classes. Even though they, didn't preach or didn't advocate faith, that was very true. Emotions are not fact, and that has always stuck with me. When COVID hit, my children were still going to the public school. And like a lot of parents, then the kids were in public school, we quickly realized we did not want them to be there. I just wasn't sure what we were going to do because I didn't know the resources that I had at the time. But when that happened, Adam's eyes opened as well. And he had always told me about Faith Baptist Church and Badger State. In fact, he had gone to Badger State when he was a teenager. And all throughout our relationship, he would always talk about Pastor Noonan, Mr. Schultz, Mr. Keelis, Calvin, a bunch of men that influenced him, and he will always remember the influence that they had on his life. And I asked him, and I said, would you be willing to go in just to see Pastor Noonan, just to see what our options are? He agreed. We came in just out of the blue, didn't announce it, came in one day, and Pastor Noonan recognized him immediately. And most of those men that I mentioned were here as well, just working, just around the church working. And Pastor Noonan gave us a tour. We spotted all of those men. It was just like, it was wonderful to look back and see these men embrace Adam and welcome him like he had never been gone. And I knew that that was the place my kids needed to be. So long story short, this will be their third year attending Badger State Baptist School. I'm in my third year of salvation, and God has shown me and taught me, and I truly believe everything that I've gone through is for His glory. But to any young person, any person who's having depressive or sad thoughts, I understand more than any other person who hasn't gone through it can. And those times were hard for me. They were very hard, and I didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel before salvation. But each day and every event I get to go to, every chaperone experience I have, every day I come to church, I look forward to encouraging young ladies. And God has proven to me over and over again this past year that my testimony will be used, and it will be a benefit for others if I'm not ashamed to tell it.